ESO Personalised, proud sponsor of the Impacted podcast. Why not visit their website on www.esopersonalised.co.uk. Your brand is our business.
Hello and welcome back to this week's edition of Impacted. I am your host, Bison, and I'm joined today with my co-host.
Coming up from Unity Space, I'm sadly deserting the hive. I'm going to the Underrealm. It's the Joker.
Hi, mate. You all right?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, I mean we got a bit of a marathon going on this week, haven't we? Because yesterday we did the re-recording of Kira, didn't we? And today we're doing we're moving swiftly on to the obviously the Undead Realm, and we are going to be talking about the incredible, probably. Along with Roseberry, one of the biggest character-driven performers that Impact have, and that is Su Yung. Dun dun dun. Yeah. So so Su Yung is who we're talking about today. So basing everything on how we've previously run the show, we talk about Su Young's past. We're going to talk about what she's been doing. And we're going to, the present, all the way past, all the way up to the present, and we're going to talk about where we think she's going in the future. Sue, if you want to talk about characters, Joe, Sue really is very much about her character. I'm not saying she can't go in the ring, because she definitely can, but let's face the fact, Sue is what you would call a true character of wrestling, right?
Definitely. She's at Rosemary. She's one of the queens of kayfabe.
Oh, without doubt. And up until recently, actually, funny enough, I don't think I've seen her. I'd seen her break her character on social media or anything like that. It was only recently when obviously Rich got injured that she sort of kind of broke kayfabe a little bit with regards to everyone wishing him all the best, because obviously we didn't want Rich to end up being permanently injured. If anybody doesn't know, Rich Swann is Su Young's, shall we say, funkier half. I think maybe is probably the word, funkier. So if you're ready to go to a party, I don't know. I think Sue would be more interested in a Halloween party, but I think Rich would be more up for a Christmas party or a New Year's Eve party. What do you think?
Oh, I'm not much of a party person, so I'll go to anything.
But I definitely think that they've both got different styles of parties that they would enjoy the most based on their characters. Anyway.
Oh yeah.
So okay. So let's start with Sue's early days. Let's start with a little bit of pre-impact stuff. But like I say, you don't want to talk too much pre-impact, because one amazing thing about Sue is her content of impact stuff since she joined the company is vast. So there's quite a lot there to talk about. So yeah, we'll talk about her early days. I mean, she started off in promotions like MLL. She progressed on to Memphis Wrestling, which I believe is Jerry Lawler's promotion. Obviously, he saw something in her, and she ended up going over to the WWE Developmental. I think she was there in 2010, maybe for about a year or so. She did a lot of work there. She ended up the FCW champ. She joined Shimmer, and I always find this funny when you say these two together. She then joined Shine. So she started in Shimmer, and then she ended up in Shine in 2012. Where she also she I think she was tag champs in Shine at some point. So I've mentioned in previous videos, I have a bit of a cold. I can't seem to shake it. So if I sound a little bit snivelly, a little bit bunged up, I'm going to apologise because I'm still cracking on with this, because we've got to get this stuff done. We don't want to let any of the listeners down. So just bear with me. If I sound a bit bunged up or I suddenly stop because I need to swallow or something, it's because I can't breathe through my nose very well. So just bear with me.
It's just a British fella, guys. Don't worry.
So she joined Impact around about 20. I think it was 2018. It was pretty much around the March time of 2018. It wasn't long after. I think it sort of kind of also turned to I think it was like the GFW period when she came in.
Yes, it was.
So possibly, obviously, under the Jarrett time at the time. Now, I don't know whether he had any involvement, in Sue coming in or what. I don't know. But what I do know is she made one hell of an impact, because her debut was literally her coming in, attacking Ali. Well, I believe Braxton, who was actually already her husband at the time, was proposing to her in the ring. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I rewatched that again last night. Just Braxton Sutter was desperate to try and suck up to everybody. He soon go for Love S, and that didn't work. And then he tried it again with Ali. The reaction she gave was fantastic. And then it all turned out just to be a build-up to bring Sue Young in. And when she came in, everyone just went mental, especially Sanjay Dutt. He knew who Sue Young was, and when he really built the pop up for her when she came out behind Ali. Then,
it went absolutely insane. And of course, Braxton then aligned himself with her and was like, "Oh, I want to marry this one now," and sort of kind of like was sucking up to her and was sort of aligned himself with her for the next few matches. But what that ultimately did was, because Ali at the time was obviously the ultimate babyface of the company, it set her up as the ultimate heel, right? So it was just like, boom, here I am, I'm the heel, so bang, have some of that. I think it was great, because I think it was a great debut. Probably one of the best debuts of a even better than Rosemary to a degree. I mean, Decay took a little bit of a build, right? Whereas Sue was pretty much bang, there you go. This is me, and this is what I'm going to be. And that then sort of kind of set up a storyline, which sort of kind of then went on to the again, I always mention this, but the best pay-per-view of that year, Redemption. Led up to Redemption. That then she then defeated. Ali defeated her, if you remember right, to retain the title. If you remember, at that time, then what we had was I think Braxton then was like he sort of kind of like moved in then, and it was sort of kind of that was an interesting thing actually. That was very interesting, because this moved Sue to attack Ali again after the match, which then led to Rosemary coming in to make the save, because obviously she needed to save her bunny, right?
Yeah. The Demon Bunny was starting to become a bit of an online sensation, and this was the perfect pop to really cement Rosemary as a face character.
Yeah.
Although we knew she was over, but it cemented that this is where Rosemary's going now, and it was the most interesting time for Ali.
Yeah, I think it was a really cool moment. So I tell you what I want to do is I just want to, like, before we start moving on in the story, I just want to talk about kind of like Sue's look. So, and also the sort of kind of similarities to the character and actually, or the things that people perceive to be similarities to Rosemary, right? Because I'm going to explain how they're actually extremely different characters, right? So what you have here is, obviously she's the undead bride. That's what she is. So somewhere along the line, she was obviously going to get married. It's a bit like I'm trying to remember the famous famous story that was written about the bride that got left at the altar, and somebody I don't know, I can't remember. She wore the dress for the rest of her life.
Great Expectations.
That's it. Great Expectations. So it's kind of a bit of a take on the whole kind of like idea of, like, she was obviously at some point she was going to be married to somebody, and it all kind of went wrong, and that's when the Sue thing kind of all went wrong, and this is what we ended up with, the undead bride. Now, so she's not really wearing a wedding dress as such. She's wearing a veil, but she's, I mean, obviously, if she was wearing a wedding dress, I guess it would be quite difficult to wrestle in that. But it's kind of like it's almost actually, it's probably like the sort of thing maybe that she would wear on her wedding night. I don't know. Kind of, it's quite a short dress, isn't it? I mean, it's a white dress. It's all on it. You know, it's a bit of a mess. She's got the face makeup on. I think her face makeup really accentuates her Oriental roots. Do you think?
Yeah, I think like Rosemary, the use of face paint and makeup and everything to really make your character stand out with Sue Young is one of the best traits about her, as well as body language. You know, you could tell she's deranged. You could tell she's possessed. She's got her hand on her head. She's constantly trying to shake something. Yeah, shaking something off.
She's got that sort of kind of like turned head thing as she walks along with a sort of kind of shuffle, as opposed to a proper walk. And she just is very menacing. And I think one of the interesting things about Sue is the fact that actually she doesn't speak.
No, she doesn't speak much.
She doesn't say anything.
No, it's only recently she started talking.
But that's not Sue. That's actually I'm wrong. She did start talking to Sue, did she? Right at the end before she. Yeah. Okay. Let's just get to that later. So, but at this moment, and for quite a long period of time, until sort of kind of the mid-range of 2019, she never said a word. Like she didn't need to. She did not need to, because she's such a good character actor that she says everything that she needs to say. You know, like with her visual appearance, with her screams, because that's one thing she does do. She screams. She's just incredibly good in front of a camera.
Yeah,
she has an amazing presence about her, and her facial expressions, her body movements, says everything it needs to be said, and you just totally understand what's going on, right?
Definitely, it adds to the mystery of Sue Young. It adds to the horror aspect that she's trying to put across. You know, she's
incredibly mysterious, isn't she?
Yeah, I think she like I said, there's going to be a lot of comparison between Sue and Rosemary from me. Like Rosemary, she's one of the best superstars to not need words to put herself across. You know, Rosemary will talk to you in riddles, and Sue Young, the riddle with Sue Young is to just try and figure out what she's actually trying to put across and what she's doing, and everything she does when it comes to like is a shock. You know, the coffins and everything, for example.
Yeah. So here, sort of, kind of, here lies the thing. You see, so you know, Rosemary, although she has her look, she also has her intelligence in terms of the riddles and the talking in the almost like in the second and third person, always just talking about we and all that kind of stuff. There's something going on. There's a lot going on up here. And it also comes out of here, as well as in her persona and the way that she holds herself, the way her face paint. I also think that her face paint ultimately describes her character as well at that time. So, like back when Rosemary first came in, her face paint was very erratic. It was very messy, very like kind of like conflicted to a degree, which is very similar to what Sue Young is, but all the time. I mean, that is, Sue is, although it's clearly on purpose, it's not like clear lines and clear design. It's just, it's there. You know what I mean? As time's gone on, and Rosemary sort of moved from that more dedicated heel to the kind of heel, but still a face, almost like a demon with a heart kind of character. Her face paint is changed from being this kind of frantic, erratic kind of face paint to a more specific designs, even to the extent with now she's got like the bone, but it's kind of in a big smile, right? So which is something that they picked up on in the storyline that we'll get to later on of the lady with the big smile, right? So that effectively is kind of like there is, so the characters are very, very different, although you know, they are from the same realm, but they're also very, very different. And I like the way that they've done that. They've tied in the realms. They've tied in, yeah, Sue is a different character, but she is from the same realm as Rosemary. She's from the same realm as, well, I'm guessing Havoc and, James Mitchell are all from. They're in that almost that alternate universe, right? So
Yeah.
I like the way that they've done that with Sue as well, because it allows them to be able to intertwine storylines and create these this sort of alliances or these rivalries between them, because they all have got their allegiance to the one that, of course, as far as we're aware, is Kevin Sullivan. But at the end of the day, I still believe that they could bring someone else in as that character that was a proper badass wrestler of some kind.
It's really clever storytelling. It helps carry everything on. It doesn't get old. It doesn't wear out.
I actually wish that they hadn't revealed, or they hadn't put Kevin Sullivan in that role, because I think that they should have just kept him as this person that you never really saw, then maybe years down the line, when someone came in that they thought, this dude would be great if he was the one, and we could really use him. We could use him as him. It's a bit like the Dark Order thing they've got going on at AEW. It's all like, who is the leader of the Dark Order kind of thing. Obviously they're eventually going to reveal it. If it's Matt Hardy, it's Matt Hardy. I'm not sure it is going to be Matt Hardy, but I think that as again, same with ICU, Sammy being the leader of that is too obvious. Whereas I think that the way that it's been portrayed, Matt Hardy is now too obvious to be the leader of the Dark Order, right? Do you not think?
Yeah, I think it is Matt Hardy for the Dark Order, but I would love it if Matt Hardy wipes everyone's expectation and does come in for ICU. But if it's Sammy Callahan, then that's fantastic, because it plays off where he left off, really, with Tessa Blanchard.
I guess, but it's just so obvious. You'd be expecting that. So, if it turns out to be someone completely different, then you're going to be like, wow, I never expected that. And that's, and Sammy is still off on his own, doing his own thing, and suddenly going to turn up and attack Tessa. You know what I mean? Like, all this time we've been thinking he's this ICU character, and actually he's been off doing his own thing, and he's making his plans, and he's going to come back and go boom. And everyone would be like, oh, we thought you were ICU. You know what I mean? Like, that would be even more like, oh, hang on a minute, So it'd be interesting to see where that goes. But moving back to obviously to Sue, the way that whole sort of kind of intertwines into the universe, into the undead realm, I think works really, really well. So yeah, and of course she's got her undead bridesmaids as well, hasn't she? Which are obviously like the insurance policy in the back as well. Obviously, they're not around all the time. I'm sure that depends on budget allowing. We generally see them in Canada, or in or certainly or at a pay-per-view or something like that, don't we? We don't very often see them unless we're in Canada or pay-per-view. So that's obviously because most of the undead bridesmaids, I guess, are local Canadian female wrestlers or characters. I mean, some of them probably not even wrestlers. I don't know.
The undead maid of honor is played by Casey Spinelli.
Yeah, she's good. She's a really big girl as well, isn't she? She's like bigger than Sue.
Yeah,
she's
massive.
Yeah.
I'd like to see her in Impact a bit more often, but she's doing her own thing, so which is a shame, because I'm a big fan of hers.
Yeah, Casey's good, man. She's been over to UK a few times and fought over here, but yeah, she's been a bit of a draw for some of the indie promotions over here when she's done a tour. She's very, very good. And she played that role of the undead bride. Undead maid of honor very, very well. So that was pretty cool too. Now, so obviously Rosemary came in. She made the save. She saved her bunny, which obviously was almost sort of fall into line with everything else that was going on from social media point of view. You had the Rosemary and the Demon Bunny thing going on, which still goes on now. I don't know if you're aware of that, but the Demon Bunny still exists.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, in merch only, I think, and I think they make the odd appearance at sort of kind of like, you know, help me, Joe, help me. I'm losing my track.
They're filming another series now, and that Ali and Rosemary do come together at like WrestleCon events, and
That's it, WrestleCon. That's what I was thinking. So WrestleCon events, they come together. You see them doing signings. You know, they certainly sell their merch, and like you say, they do film those sort of kind of like YouTube things together as well, don't they? Demon Bunny things.
Yeah.
They were doing a lot in that time as well, where it's sort of kind of like Rosemary. I used to love them actually, where Rosemary was kind of like always constantly hiding her face.
Yeah.
And, you know, she was like she would be sort of kind of acting all demony, and Ali would be all silly, and Rosemary. It's very common. Yeah, it's all very, very comical, you know, and I really enjoyed them actually. I thought they were really cool. So that was really good. So anyway, as that sort of kind of friendship then moved on, we ended up with a match between Sue and Rosemary. I think that ended up in a bit of a brawl, to be honest, with Ali trying to help, but the undead bridesmaids were holding Ali back, if you remember rightly, to make her watch Rosemary beating. That's right, she was. And Rosemary was absolute mauling, and then ended up in a casket. She ended up being casketed. Now I think in that time, unfortunately, Rosemary was injured, which is and I think rather than her just disappearing off TV, I think they did a really good job of you know, basically storylining her out in a good way. Like, you know, I think they ended up with some sort of vignette. They ended up with a vignette, didn't they? Where some sort of video package or whatever, where they ended up having a funeral for Rosemary.
Sue's funeral for Rosemary to really,
to kill her off.
Everyone thought she was dead, and that made her pop when she came back at
they proper killed that
Homecoming a lot better.
Yeah, they proper killed the character off. And you know, at that moment in time, it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, you know, this is obviously serious, because Rosemary really obviously needed that time to, you know, what does she call it? Repair her meat suit. So so you know, she clearly needed that time, and I think, like, you know, I think that showed where Impact was clearly invested in the Rosemary character as well, to really take that time to think about, okay, so how do we write Rosemary off, you know, in a good way, so that you know, leaves it open to eventually have a shock return. And I think using Sue's using the storyline, including Sue and Ali, and you know, I think Kira Hogan at some point got involved in this as well. But involving all of these people, I think really made it, you know, a really good way to write Rosemary out, and at the same time continue that feud between Sue and Ali, because now Ali's like, you killed my friend, you know. So you then
Ali had to finally get mean. It was like that Ali had to get mean, and we had Kira Hogan trying to talk some sense into her, and Rosemary leaving us messages on mirrors and everything. So they added that much needed creepiness that you would expect from Rosemary and Sue Young, and you can see how it was tormenting Ali, how it was twisting Ali, and Kira Hogan struggling to keep everything stable. So we talked about Kira Hogan.
All that together. I think that. You know, I mean, you know, in a previous episode, we talked about how they were involving Kira in these kind of storylines to really, even as a secondary character, but how important that role actually was within the story, to almost be the jam, or you know, the bread. Sorry, the butter and jam in the Sue Young Ali sandwich. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To really gel and stick that together. You know, I think without Kira in there, I mean, they probably would have done it with somebody else, but without Kira being in there, that wouldn't have worked so well, I don't think.
No, I think it was better to involve Kira Hogan than to just grab someone else randomly. And when they added Jordan Grace into it, it was because Jordan Grace was being attacked by Su Yung, and she was getting involved with Kira Hogan as a friend. So
yeah. So it's sort of kind of
they showcased the knockouts when they were needed, and it put it kept Kira Hogan relevant and in the spotlight, and Kira Hogan and Su Yung would go back and forth, and Ali and Su Yung would go back and forth.
I think one of the things that Impact do really, really well is they are able to intertwine their knockouts and keep them involved, even if they're not actually like part of what they're pushing at that moment. So yeah, at the end of the day, what they're pushing at that moment is Ali and Sue, not Kira. But you know, Kira is still relevant. She's still part of that storyline. She's still earning her money. She's still doing her bit, right? So and like you say, it keeps her relevant. It keeps her involved. We keep seeing her face. We're used to her. We know who she is. So that works really, really well. Now, of course, that eventually led to that last rights match, where Young ended up defeating Ali to become the first-time Knockouts champion.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that was that last rights match. Jeez, me, that was a slobber knocker, wasn't it?
It was one of the best matches Ali's had, and Ali hasn't had a lot of standout matches, but this is one of the best ones she's had, and it built on breaking Ali. It made Su Yung finally get what she'd come in after. When she came in, she went straight for the Knockouts title. And really,
it took
that was
her
her ambition.
It took a while to get there. I think they built
it took a while to build it up.
They built it incredibly well, you know, because you're really, and again, still to this point, I mean, we're almost looking at like 9-10 months since Sue's come in. This has gone on for quite a period of time. You've built that character. We know that Sue's not spoken a word. She's not said anything. In that whole period of time, she's not spoken one word. But you are totally invested in this like crazy ass character that's, you know, turned up from the Udden realm, is put Rosemary, who previously was an absolute badass, is put Rosemary in a casket, set fire to it, still not said anything in this whole time. Yeah. To then eventually end up being the undisputed knockout champion at that time. I thought they did it well. You know, at the end of the day, obviously the ultimate goal was to put the gold onto Sue because she is such an incredible character. But you had to build that character for people to go, wow, yeah, she. You know, it's like that's the thing to do, man. That's awesome. You know, and I think they did that extremely well. And Sue, as a character, as this kind of like, you know, she's almost like a method actor, isn't she? She proper, definitely. You know, yeah, she proper sold the whole undead thing that was going on. That she was just, you know, she was just crazily insane and pretty much would do anything to get what it is that she wants, and that was the Knockouts title, and there it is. You know, at the end of the last rights match, which was an incredible match, she becomes Knockouts champion, which I think was a really cool moment. What do you think of Sue's music?
I love it. It really, really sets the atmosphere. And again, like Rosemary, when that music hits, it sends a chill down your spine. The crowd goes wild. You feel that the persona that Su Yung puts across, as you do when Rosemary comes out, you feel like that jarred movement. You feel numb. You feel engrossed in the character. Or I do anyway. I don't know so much whether everybody else does. You can drop a comment and let me know if you do or if you don't. I love it. You see Su Yung come out. You see the insanity come through, and I'm thinking, oh yes, this is me. So Rosemary comes out. You see the deranged side. You think, oh yes, this is me, but then I'm in the void and I'm talking through the empty space. So
yeah. You love this stuff, don't you? So and I do too. I think this is a sort of thing to me which sort of kind of like that, you know, as much as I'm a big wrestling fan, I love wrestling per se. You know, I love the actual, the art form of wrestling. I
Me
believe,
too.
you know, it's these kind of storylines that really sort of kind of like take me out of the norm of wrestling, and creates kind of something a little bit different, a little bit more interesting. You know, and yeah, damn it, it's real to me. Damn it, I believe it, baby. So. And it exists, and that's it. End of story. So I love all that stuff. So I think it worked really, really well. We then, I mean, apart from some of the incredible stuff that we get backstage, you know, we had all these like amazing vignettes going on. Like we talked about the funeral, that was pretty awesome. So you get all of that kind of stuff going on. She then, now she's got the title. She then went on to face, I think her first opponent was Katarina. There's a wrestler like this. Funny enough, a British wrestler that lives in the States, I might add, but she does come back over to the UK quite a lot these days. Yeah, so she then went on to defeat Katarina. I believe she defeated Madison Rain. I think she had a couple of other matches, a few other people. She eventually lost the title to the current world champion, to Tessa Blanchard. Now, that happened in a three-way, which also included Ali.
Yes.
So,
I think it was Ali who took the pin, wasn't it?
I think, it was Ali that took the pin.
Yeah, it made Tessa Blanchard dominant. She took out the weakest link, and it didn't damage Su Yung. Although losing the title wouldn't have damaged her anyway, but it just again showed that the pressure on Ali from everybody else was just too much for her to handle because she was so focused on getting rid of Su Yung. And Tessa Blanchard took advantage of that, and Su Yung took advantage of that. And unfortunately for Su, it didn't pay off.
I mean, we then ended up with a rematch with Tessa. So Tessa then tried to I think she then, I'm trying to remember, she lost the rematch. No, she lost the rematch. So Tessa again retained. And then we ended up with this sort of kind of like Tessa getting a bit of a beat down. I think Sue, rather than beat her in the ring, decided she was going to eliminate her like Rosemary. I think that the Rosemary then started bringing down another casket, if I remember right, another coffin. She was trying to get her into the coffin. There's a big story. This is where the storyline starts to build again. And then we had Ali, and I think it was Kira Hogan. So this is where we've got that friendship thing again. So we then got Ali, Kira Hogan coming in, saving Tessa from ending up in the coffin. Again, that was one of those sort of kind of like, okay, well, this time you don't win, Sue. This time the good guys win. Yeah,
and it then turned Sue's attention onto Kira Hogan. I thought when Tessa Blanchard was in the coffin, everyone was like, "Are they going to do this to Tessa as well?" And Ali and Kira Hogan coming up, the crowd went wild. And Ali's here to save the day. So you're expecting either Ali to fall or Su Yung Ali to fall or Tessa Blanchard to still get not taken out completely.
That's
and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Ali saved the day. Much to Tessa's anger. She wasn't happy that Ali came out. She's like, I can handle this.
Yeah, I could have handled this on my own. Yeah. So we had like some weird dynamic stuff going on, didn't we? Because Tessa was annoyed at Ali, and Kira for doing what they did. She's like, I could have done that myself. You didn't need to do that kind of thing. So we had a bit of a weird dynamic being created there. We sort of kind of saw the storyline then end up eventually with the Dark Ali character started to build from that moment where she's aligned herself with Sue. So that was almost like the start of that. I think there was some sort of stuff going on where I think it was Ali and Kira were going into the undead realm to try and find Rosemary. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, James Mitchell said that he could get he could get Rosemary back if Ali sold her soul. And Rosemary was leaving a message just saying, "Don't come in, let me handle it myself."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Ali ignored her. She sold her soul to James Mitchell, and
That's right.
when she come back out, she wasn't the same.
She wasn't the same. That was where we ended up with that kind of conflicted Ali that over a couple of weeks ended up turning into Dark Ali, which actually for me was probably one of my favourite versions of Ali. But I think she could have done a lot more with it. But I think it was one of my favourite versions of her, in all honesty. And obviously, she then became almost Sue Young's puppet. You know, she was Sue Young's puppet. Obviously, you know, that did lead to Rosemary sort of ultimately being saved in some way. I'm not sure exactly how it all sort of kind of panned out. I can't remember, to be honest. But yeah, so that storyline sort of kind of you probably remember.
Yeah, it was Ali ignored Rosemary's warnings. She took on the dark side, and that made her Dark Ali. She tried to use that to break Sue Young, and it completely backfired on Ali. What Rosemary warned her would happen if she made a couple of appearances in between then to say don't do it, and it Ali ignored Rosemary, and Sue Young used that against Ali. So Ali just went full blown heel again. You know, she wasn't heel until she had Maria. She was with Maria, and then she went back to a much better heel.
Yeah,
it made it evil.
It was a darker evil heel term, wasn't it? Which, you know, worked really well. I actually quite liked it. I think she could have done more with it, but you know, obviously she was on her way out in her head, I think. But so she was just following on in the storyline. She knew where the storyline was leading. It's a shame because I really thought that she could have proper delved into the dark side of her character. And again, you know, it's the same way as it's a lot easier to play an evil character than it is to play an over the top sort of kind of like heel character, isn't it? I think it's very easy to suddenly become like, you know, it's a bit like my alter ego Bison, right? My alter ego Bison is supposed to be like, you know, an ultimate bad guy. Whereas actually that's very far from who I actually am as a person. So, but that's why I like it, because it allows me to be a little bit different. Sometimes, you know, sometimes if I go on my social media Bison, I could write something a lot harsher being Bison than I would if I was writing something as me. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, like, if it was me, if I'm writing it as me, I'd be like, oh no, that sounds a bit mean. Or do you know what I mean? Like it's sort of kind of, you know, I can't do it. But if I'm doing it as my alter ego, and it's not my name above it, it's sort of kind of like almost like it gives me that. Yeah, I could say that because that's something Bison, the bad guy, the heel, would say.
Yeah.
But it's not something like Jason would say. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's one of the great influences characters like Rosemary, Sue Young, and Sammy Callahan have on people. You know, that they show you the best way to break face value, and if you want to reinvent yourself like this.
Yeah, you know, it's like when you it's very interesting actually, because when I was watching that documentary on Sammy, you saw a completely different side to him because he was like being himself, right? And then all of a sudden it's almost like he turns that switch, or he clicks his finger, and even his facial, even his look in his face just completely changes. Like, because now I'm Sammy Callahan, right? The heel, or the bad guy, the scumbag that's willing to do anything to win, basically. You know what I mean? So, but the real Sammy is actually quite a calm, very thoughtful, kind person, in the sense that you see him going around and sort of kind of like, you know, encouraging all of the other wrestlers in the back and offering any advice and, you know, saying, come on, you got this kind of thing. You know, that he is like, he is the ultimate locker room leader, I think. Like, whereas, like, but he's doing it in a way that you ultimately, you don't see it. We don't see it. You know, I mean, we saw it in that, but like, ultimately, we don't see this dude as the locker room leader. We see this dude as the scumbag of the locker room that would do anything to beat the shit out of all of them, right?
Yeah.
So ultimately,
sorry, you carry on.
Yeah. So ultimately, you know, I think that when you turn heel, it is very easy to kind of like say anything you want, because actually that's not really you. You know what I mean? You could just, it is proper kayfabe. You know, it's not real. You know, like, and people sort of kind of know that, you know, if you're in character and you turn around and call them a fucking bastard or something, they know that you're not you don't mean it. You know they know it, and depending on how you say it. I mean, if I was to say that as a heel, I wouldn't go fucking bastard. You know, I'd be like, you fucking bastard. You know, or whatever. So it's completely different. It's a completely different scenario, right?
Definitely. Another best example is Chris Jericho. Yeah.
Yes.
My opinion. You know, outside the ring, he's one of the most unbiased guys in the entire industry, and he'll stick his neck out for any company, regardless.
Yes.
Yeah. But when he wants to play a heel, he plays it perfectly. And Sami Callihan is exactly like that. And Tessa Blanchard is another one. She's outside the ring. She's got a lot more. She thinks a lot more about herself, but not in a selfish way. She thinks about how she can better herself all the time. And the best performers like Rosemary and Sue Young and Taya Valkyrie do exactly the same.
Tessa's the same.
Yeah.
You know,
in the ring, they're one person. Out the ring, they're another.
Yes, definitely. And I think that is, you know, where I think that's where you sort of kind of have to draw the line between character and person. And that is really, really important. And I always think to myself, like when I'm watching heels, like, you know, like your Sue, like Rosemary, Sammy, whoever it is I'm watching, I always think to myself, you're so good as a heel because I know you're a really nice person.
Yeah.
That's what makes you.
Sammy says he's not the bad guy. He's a nice person. And you don't believe it when he's in the ring.
No,
he actually is.
You know, and I think that's the interesting thing, because, you know, the worse, the more heel you are, the more polar opposite you are in real life, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's again what makes a great heel is the bottom line is that, you know, a great heel is always the polar opposite to what you actually are, because it allows you to be this person that I'm not saying you would like to be that person, but it almost allows you, it gives you the license to be the person that you're not, you know, that in real life you find really difficult to be. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so I think that is something that works really, really well. And I think that's probably why, you know, I'm sort of looking into the psychology a little bit here of sort of kind of heels, really. But, you know, I think that, you know, I think Ali, for instance, could have been so much stronger as Dark Ali when she was working with Sue, if she really put her sort of kind of like heart and soul into it. I don't think she
really
did.
She really pushed herself. No, she was on her way out by the time the Dark Ali thing had come along.
Yeah,
and
she really
coming up the start of.
Yeah, she was like, well, this is just a catalyst for me to leave, rather than this is me really a good opportunity for me to be a total badass that someone's never seen before, and really, you know, sort of kind of show a completely different side to her character and versatility. You know, do you know? I don't know. She could have done better. That's all I'm saying. But Sue was still the amazing character that she was, and she continued on. Obviously, that led then to amazing vignette where we saw everyone ending up in the undead realm and Rosemary ending up trying to find Ali, and then Ali ending up being ultimately killed.
Yeah. Everyone cried. I cried. I was heartbroken to see Ali go. I was really, really. They made that storyline so emotionally driven as it came to an end. You could forget all of that. It's just a story. They made it so indulging. When Ali'd gone, I was like, I had tears down my face, and
I don't think I ultimately don't. People expected them to kill her.
Yeah, that was a big shock value too. That was one of the biggest shocks since little Jimmy got hit by a car. But from in the LAX rivalry with the OGs when they run the kid over.
Right.
Didn't expect that to happen.
I mean, back in the TNA thing, we had I think it was she's in WWE now. Mickey James, being James Storm doing some stuff where she sort of like he pushes Mickey James in front of a train. That is some hard hitting shit, mate. Ultimately, it's a bit like a soap opera, right? You know that if a character leaves but they're not dead, then they can come back, right?
Definitely.
If you kill a character off in a soap, well, they're not going to come back because they're dead, right? So so to kill Ali off completely, it's quite a big shock, really, because ultimately, yes, of course she can come back because she's a wrestler. We all know that she's not actually dead, and that she's in another company now. We know that, but it's like, actually, how do you bring if Ali ultimately, if they ultimately re-signed Ali, say in 3 years' time when her contract expires with AEW, and they think, let's bring Ali back, and it's on the table to come back, then ultimately it's actually quite difficult to now re-sign her, right? Because everyone would be like, but Ali's dead. How can Ali suddenly come back here? So in your logical brain, they've killed her off. She's not coming back. That's it. Ali's gone. We're never going to see Ali again. So
thank you, Sue. You broke my heart.
Yeah. Thanks for that. But ultimately, I suppose Ali could come back, but as a different character. I suppose you just wouldn't bring her back as Ali. You'd bring her back as Jennifer or something. I don't know, but she would ultimately just come back as somebody different. But they would ultimately treat it as like that's the death of the Ali character. If you know what I mean. It'll just come back as somebody else. So unfortunately, or thankfully, in some people's cases, because there was a lot of people that weren't so keen on Ali, that we will never see the Ali character ever again on Impact TV. So she's now dead. Thank you, Sue, for that. That was the ultimate heel. You've just killed somebody. So fair play. So obviously that then led on to kind of more of a rivalry with Rosemary, because now obviously Rosemary's not very happy because the bunny's dead, so she needs to get her revenge. But we then saw Kiera Hogan trying to befriend Rosemary. We can do this together. We can defeat Su Yung together. Kind of storyline that didn't pan out too well, which ultimately led to we're starting to get that kind of alignment with James Mitchell, the sinister minister himself, starting to then bring together his sort of kind of stable of Su Yung and Havoc. So that then we're then building into something else. So what I really love, I guess, about the Su Yung character is a lot of people were like, well, what can you do with this character? Once she is what she is and that's it. Well, actually, you know, there's a lot you can do with this girl, because ultimately, from the moment she has arrived on Impact TV, her character has developed, and become more and more and more. You know, we then had that. You know, we had the moment where we started seeing the vignettes on the big screen, where she's suddenly making these weird sounds.
She's coming off as High Valkyrie.
Yes, that's right. So she's making all of these strange voices, and everyone's going, "What? Su Yung is speaking?" You know, yeah. What was it? Yeah. So some weird stuff going on, but we started to get some vocals. So again, they're like, okay, so up until this point now, you know, literally almost 18 months later, Sue is finally vocalizing something out of her mouth which resembles a word. You know, ultimately the Undead Bridesmaids type side of things is sort of kind of dwindled and died off. That's all gone, and now we've got this. Now we've ultimately got this stable with James Mitchell, Su Yung, and Havoc.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So again, so we've now evolved. The characters have all evolved. You know, we've also got James being the mouthpiece, able to articulate stuff. You know, ultimately putting himself over as the manipulator, as the sort of kind of, you know, the brains. And he's got Sue as the insane one, and Havoc as his brawn. So he's got the hustle, the muscle kind of scenario going on.
And he's got the power struggle between Havoc and Su Yung. Which one is going to destroy Rosemary?
That's right. Yeah.
Rosemary's been like, as soon as Havoc come in, Rosemary immediately teases him about how he failed to keep Abyss under control, which I thought was a really, really clever reminder that James Mitchell isn't just a one-off. James Mitchell's been there before with monsters, and it's not worked for him, and that pissed Havoc off. And when you piss Jessica Havoc off, then she's got no control. It doesn't matter who she's with. So she starts conflicting herself with Su Yung and Rosemary, and then we saw how that turned out. And I thought it was all fantastic because James Mitchell was trying to keep them calm, trying to keep things between Su Yung and Rosemary calm down, because the man doesn't want any more trouble doesn't want anyone else to go back to the Undead Realm, and the man is Kevin Sullivan. And James Mitchell, he's trying to be this dominating figure, but you know he's still serving under someone else in the Undead Realm. And it was
it's kind of weird.
Brilliant story.
I think during this time we started to learn the sort of kind of dynamic stuff that's going on. So like James ultimately works for him. Sue. So we ultimately also find out that Sue is actually his bride. Yeah. Right? Is the bride of him. Rosemary is actually his daughter. Right?
That's how it seems.
I think that's right, isn't it? Rosemary is the daughter of him. Right?
Is that,
am I right?
It's
or
about,
acting as a daughter?
That's one of the ways it comes across, or it comes across as Rosemary's a servant, Su Young's a servant. Everyone serves. Yeah, everyone serves under the man, and everyone has to obey what he says. If you're from the Undead Realm, he's the boss. Everyone does what he says, and if you don't do it, Su Yung will send you back down there.
Kind of family, but you've got this kind of family dynamic going on, because ultimately he's the patriarch, right? He's the man. He's the one that you serve. So, you know, the devil, or however you want to look at it. He's the man, right? Then you have Sue, who's ultimately is the undead bride, and it turns out that ultimately she's his bride, right? Okay, so that is the connection there. James Mitchell is like his right hand man, kind of thing. Yeah,
definitely.
And I'm pretty certain that Rosemary's supposed to be the Shadow's daughter.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure of that, right? So I'm sure that's a dynamic, how that sort of kind of works. it's taken me a while to sort of kind of like get to grips with how all of this is supposed to tie in, you know, ultimately to the man in the you know, to the person that they ultimately serve in the Undead realm. Now the thing is with Rosemary though in the shadow is that she's got more than one person going on up here. There's you know, the we factor to Rosemary.
Yeah,
She's very clever. She's very intelligent. She's very manipulative.
Rosemary's a rebel.
She is. She's almost like, yes, that's exactly it. Because underlying the fact that she is part of the undead realm, and quite a big part of that, she ultimately is actually a good person at heart. Is that right? You think?
Yeah, Rosemary's a good person at heart, and now she's more becoming like say Loki. She's becoming like a god of mischief or a goddess of mischief. You know,
Yes,
I mean Loki as in the mythology character, not Loki the wrestler. You know,
yes.
She's becoming like this instigator of mischief and torment. Not so much as sinister like torment, just literally she's doing what she wants because it's fun, and what she's doing because it's fun is creating havoc, and it's blowing up in James Mitchell's face, and it's caused that rift between Sue Young and Havoc herself.
Yeah. So I mean, all of that sort of kind of like builded through, and we had the thing going on with Sue Young and Havoc and all that kind of stuff, which then ultimately led to the match where we ended up having Sue Young hung by Havoc, which was an incredible moment in the show. But obviously that all happened at the end of that. Was that which pay-per-view was that? Because that was a pay-per-view, wasn't it? Was that
no? That was just during a Mexican taping. It was one of the Mexican tapings near the end of last year.
That's right.
And
so we ultimately ended up having this hanging section during the Mexican tapings. There we go. That's right. It was because I remember, because that's how at the Mexican tapings we had the whole kind of like remembering thing going on. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So ultimately, obviously Sue then gets killed, but at the end of the episode, you get like a big where she's led on a thing. They're trying to resuscitate her. No, she's dead, basically. Well, the fact that she's already dead is kind of a little bit of a head scratcher. But anyway, no. So in this moment in time, Sue Young is dead, and then all of a sudden, when there's nobody around, you see her take that breath, and she sits up, and her eyes open, and that's the end of the show. You know, very what I call horror film moment of, you know, ultimately you can never kill the bad guy off. They got, you know, they've got to come back to life. That, you know, that very last
very great climax. It was, you know, people. I thought it was fantastic. It was a big shock just to see that they went as far as actually hanging someone on television.
That was insane. That was insane.
But,
I mean, some of us that follow Sue outside of Impact know that that's the second time she was hung. So, and I think you discovered that. You were talking about it earlier.
yes.
And I can't remember the promotion, but what I do remember was that it was Sue. Sorry, it was Paige from WWE's mum.
Yes.
Who hung her at some promotion, and actually, the footage was released recently, and it's quite intense, isn't it?
It's fantastic. I saw that the match, it was really, really brutal. You know, Sue Young can go completely hardcore. You've seen her like when she's in Impact with the kendo stick, or in that Monsters Ball match with Ty Valkyrie and Havoc. You know, you can see Sue Young could go, but that match she had against Paige's mother, that was fantastic. I've never seen Paige's mum wrestle before, and I didn't know she was that hardcore. I knew she was a badass.
She's a badass, mate. She's a badass. I was watching something where Ricky Knight. I'm going to put a plug there. I'm actually interviewing Ricky Knight in the next couple of weeks, so look out for that. Where Ricky Knight was talking about his wife and ultimately how respected she is in the industry. as a trainer, and cannot believe how much that that she hasn't been booked to do like US tours that often.
Yeah.
Because she is an ultimate badass. If you want a hardcore match, then you give a shout out to Paige's mum. I've forgotten her name. Soraya.
I'm not sure. I'm sure that you'll find out soon enough with the interview.
Yes. I know what it is. It's in my head. I'm sure it's Soraya. Soraya? Yeah, Soraya, something like that. She is an ultimate badass. And she doesn't give a monkey. She'll hit you with anything going. She'll hang you. She'll chuck you off roofs. She don't give a shit. But ultimately, she's an amazing technician in the ring as well. And you cannot fail but to have a good match with her. I mean, she's in her 50s. She's not a young woman. Like late 40s, 50s. But she can go. My God. She can go. If there's any, you've got some, like I'm not being funny, but I mean, look at Ken Shamrock. I mean, Ken Shamrock is in, like, what is he, 54? Is he 55? And he can still take a bump. I mean, probably not quite, not as well as he would have been able to take a bump in his 20s, but they do tend to protect him a little bit now. And so they bloody well should. The guy's a legend and deserves respect and protection in the ring. Whereas Soraya, she will, she will let you chuck her off.
She'll throw herself off of the building if she could.
Yeah, she will go for it, mate. And ultimately, when you go in with an opponent like that, and you are the same kind of like Sue is, ultimately we'll do exactly the same. You're in for one hell of a hard-hitting, insane, crazy match. And I think Havoc is like that. I believe Havoc's like that. I believe Rosemary is also like that. Again, your Tessas, they're all hard-hitting people. If you Taya's the same. She will not hold back. Like,
oh no,
she wants this. Whatever they're doing, they want to look like it's believable. Like,
yes,
it has.
And they do make it believable.
Like, I've just battered you, and it hurts. Because if it doesn't, then it's not. If it's not believable, then you just end up with, oh, what a joke. Like,
yeah. Eyes rolling, and you just blank out completely.
Yeah, because you're like,
it's not believable.
Yeah, it's not believable. So, I mean, we had that hanging incident, which then obviously led to the rebirth of the Sue Young character, which it was left a few weeks. I mean, it was left a little while. As far as we were concerned, yes, she was rebirthed. She came up, but they did leave it a little while before they brought her back, and then ultimately, this young, beautiful young lady turns up.
Sweet little Susie.
Sweet little Susie.
Yeah.
And she she's walking around, and my favourite bit was when she's like, "Hello, how are you?" Like, I'm Susie, which was lovely. And then obviously, the bit that always stands out for me is when she walks in the back, and you've got the Diener stood there. And they're like,
oh, what the fuck is this?
What the fuck? She's alive. Like, they knew that was Sue Young, right? They knew it was Sue Young. And they're like when she walked up, she's like, dang, she's hot. And it's like, and it's like, do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, that was, for me, that was a very small but very significant moment in the introduction of Susie. So, because, it was basically saying, she's gone from this decaying, crazy blood psychopath, and now she's suddenly turned into this beautiful, young, carefree, lovely person. And it's kind of, it's like literally what we were talking about before. It's the polar opposite, right? Susie,
definitely.
It's the polar opposite to Sue, right? So ultimately, we started to see the Susie character then building up through. She clearly has no idea what's going on. She doesn't know who anybody is. She finds herself in this really strange situation. She's in a wrestling company. She's like, what the hell is this all about? Wandering around basically almost in a daydream, thinking what the hell's going on. So we then have this kind of like situation where, you know, James Mitchell is thinking, right, I can get the band back together now, but we've got this sort of kind of Susie character that we can manipulate and do what we like with, because she's got no idea who we are and what's going on.
He's terrified of what she's going to do, so he tries to shield her from everything.
He wants to keep her as Susie. Susie is what he wants, right? So, but then of course that brings in Rosemary, who is obviously the lady with the big smile. Okay, that effectively is sort of kind of trying to release the real Susie, who ultimately is Sue Young. So, so she's trying to release her, bring her back, knowing that ultimately, if Sue was to come back and realise why she was killed off and who, that she would want to wreak her revenge, right?
Definitely, I loved it. You could tell it was going to come sooner or later, and the way they built up this naive, sweet little girl skipping around, and James Mitchell constantly panicking every time she's gone, worried that she's going to find some. And you could see triggers coming to her occasionally. She'd get like massive migraines and start doing all that again with her head, like hands on her head, sometimes screaming. She'd see.
Right, and ultimately,
what had happened.
She was touching things, wasn't she? I think that's what it was. She would touch something, she'd get a flashback. So I think that was quite cool. I was lucky enough to get to see Sue at the New York tapings, or Susie come out. The crowd reaction for her was insane. They loved her. They loved Susie. And I mean, she's literally sort of walking down there, hey, hi, you know, and it was ultimately brilliant. You didn't see some of the stuff that they ended up showing on TV. You didn't actually see that in you know, at the tapings, because ultimately you don't see the commentary, you don't see that interaction going on. So ultimately, when I actually went on to then see the show, I really liked the way that sort of kind of unfolded. The way that they were ultimately creating this sort of kind of like James Mitchell trying to keep her away from Rosemary and all that kind of stuff. I thought that worked.
He's trying to keep Havoc from doing things to her as well, because Havoc still wants to get rid of Susie and Sue Young, regardless of what incarnate she's coming. So he's in a rock and a hard place, and Rosemary's capitalizing on it, which brings back to just how great of a manipulator Rosemary is, and that.
I mean, you could tell that she was being very mischievous. She was loving it. She was enjoying what was going on. You know, obviously, ultimately, this then leads to a match, as it always does, because that's what we are. It's a wrestling company, so we've got to end up with a match. There's no point in having a storyline if it doesn't go anywhere. So we ultimately end up with a match between Susie and Rosemary, where obviously
versus us.
Exactly. Where what we're trying to do is, what she's effectively trying to do is bring that aggressive side out, bring Sue Young out of Susie. So she's trying to get her to hit her, isn't she? She's like, hit me, come on, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Eventually, ultimately, she gets out the glove.
She smacks her across the face.
That's
and the glove appears in her hand. And every bump she took before, and she's like, "What are you doing? No!" And then when Rosemary finally pushed her over the edge,
with the gloves,
something just, you could see it. Something snapped in her, and then you knew Sue Young was coming. And then it was great.
Yeah. And the Sue Young screen came out, and off she went. And then obviously that ultimately led to Rosemary sort of kind of manipulating her and leading her out to the place where Havoc hung her to get her to remember what happened. So ultimately you get her out there. She's doing the whole hanging, you know, getting her out to that point. And then it's all ultimately she starts getting the flashbacks of Havoc hanging her. And then we get Havoc turning up, don't we?
Yeah, Rosemary just plunks her out of the way.
That's right. And then you see in her face, she remembered.
Yeah.
You know? And then, of course, you know, we're leading up to the storyline that we've got at the moment where obviously Sue is wreaking her revenge, right?
She's able, I loved it.
She's now at a point where she's able to kind of slip in between the two characters of Susie and Sue Young now, isn't she? She's able to sort of kind of be both, and which I think is a really, really cool dynamic now. So, you know, again, we talked about what can they do with Sue Young now, you know, and it's almost like, you know, we've gone through this, not talking Sue Young, loads of bridesmaidsy type character. We've ultimately moved on to the storyline whereby she is part of a stable, you know, the James Mitchell-y type thing.
Yeah.
Now she's reincarnated, reincarnated effectively into Susie,
they're putting her on the same ground as where Rosemary is now. They've got Sue Young really over with the fans, and now, like Rosemary, Sue Young is on a mutual standpoint. She can go face or heel, and the fans will just go mad for her regardless, which is really what. Yeah. I think is perfect because Sue Young is really over with the fans, and she is elsewhere, and to finally loop back the whole story from it all carries on from when Ali tried to stop Sue Young throwing Rosemary into the casket to begin with, and they've carried that whole story from at least nearly 2 years ago to then, and it's just fantastic storytelling, like with Sammy Callahan and Eddie Edwards, and Sammy Callahan with Rich Swann, and Sammy Callahan with Tessa Blanchard. It's just fantastic storyline and fantastic production and fantastic planning from Impact Wrestling, and that's what makes the company stand out. For
me, it's how they intertwine everything. Like
definitely,
there is a big picture to all of it. It's not just that feud's ended with so and so now, so we'll move on to the next feud. It's almost like they've ultimately always got a plan of where the ultimate story is going to go, and effectively, like, you know, and it doesn't matter if something doesn't quite go to plan, because they've still always got the bigger picture, the bigger storyline to fall back on, which they can then possibly just take it in on a different course. They just take it, if something happens, they just take it on a slightly different course. But ultimately, the storyline, the underlying storyline, is always there, because the realm now exists fully. It now exists because it's got its father. You know, it's got its leader, it's got its leader's bride, it's got its leader's daughter, and it's got its leader's right-hand man. And ultimately, you know, everyone could be interjected at any point into the realm in some shape or form, as long as it's got its mainstay characters. Am I right?
Definitely. Hit the nail on the head. As long as it's got Rosemary and Sue Young, really, the Undead Realm is going to stay there for a very long time. And I think now they're going to start nailing Havoc into it a lot more because as Havoc and Sue Young are going to eventually clash again. Oh, they are next week, this week even. So now they're starting to really, now that James Mitchell's been sent down to the Undead Realm, Havoc's on her own. So they're starting to nail Havoc into the Undead Realm as well a lot more, because Havoc's just come in, smashed Taya Valkyrie, and then started to fight with Sue Young and Rosemary. So there's a bit of lack of direction, but Havoc really is one of these people that is, you don't need a direction for Havoc. She'll come in, smash whatever the hell she can, and James Mitchell's failed to control her. So now we've got
I think
Havoc's getting some stable ground, which is
I think
ultimately.
I think ultimately what they've done at the moment though is they've written James out, because I think James effectively needs to concentrate on some stuff that he's going on at home, and we're all aware of the situation with his daughter. She's unwell, so we ultimately sympathise with that and send our love over to the James Mitchell family. So I think they've written him out so that he can concentrate a little bit more on what's going on at home. I'm sure we'll see him come back at some stage. Maybe if the tapings are local, they might bring him back in, interject him back in, even if it's just sort of kind of a guest appearance, so that you're
bound for glory.
Yeah, just so that you're ultimately keeping him as relevant to the storyline. If that makes sense. But then obviously when they're able to bring him back in as a character, then I'm sure they ultimately will, because he is effective. He's amazing. His character is awesome. I'd love to have met him. I really would. Like I said, I saw him perform at the New York tapings, and actually I remember seeing him going into the backstage actually, but it was very brief. Funny enough, he was wearing his outfit as well. Like he was like proper in character. Yeah, he was proper in character at that moment. So I don't know where he'd been, but I saw him walking into the backstage when we were in the line. So that was interesting. So ultimately, I think they've written him out a little bit. So we might not see James over the next couple of tapings. So I think a lot of stuff now is going to go on between, like you say, Sue and Havoc. So we're going to have something going on there. We'll have Rosemary ultimately potentially manipulating stuff in the background.
Yeah.
So I think that's how that's all going to pan out. And I have this feeling that we're going to see almost an alignment or some kind of some sort of thing going on where Sue and Rosemary come together.
Rosemary gets her pet back.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Sue and Rosemary end up becoming some kind of tag team maybe, or I don't know. I just ultimately see that Sue's going to be like, well, screw you, James, screw you, Havoc, you hung me, you bitch. I got nothing. I don't want nothing to do with any of you. And then we start. Either Sue will ultimately go take her own path again, or I can see some sort of kind of like thing, unification, or I don't know what to call it now. So anyway, some kind of sort of thing where Rosemary and Sue, I think that's the path it's going to go. I think we're going to see Sue come together with Rosemary for a little bit. So how long that will be, I don't know, but we'll see some sort of kind of thing going on with them two, I think. Ultimately, I want to see Rosemary with a Knockouts title again. I think she deserves that. Not yet. I think we've got the likes of Jordan to have a decent run, maybe 6 months or so. Jordan, maybe look at the possibility of entering Kira into that. To maybe at some point, or maybe Rosemary's the one that needs to take the title from Jordan. I don't know. And then we have a run with her, and then ultimately we see Kira maybe getting involved again. I don't know. I don't see Havoc winning the title. I don't know. What about you?
I was thinking if Havoc beats Jordan Grace for the title, then that would be a great way to get Rosemary and Su Yung to come together to try and take down Havoc, and then put those three in a triple threat match at Bound for Glory or Slammiversary, and then see who wins it from there.
Yeah, that's
interesting. Then they need something to do with Jordan Grace after that though. But if Havoc, Su Yung, or Rosemary takes the title off of Jordan Grace eventually, it would be a good opportunity to to keep those three fighting, because we want those three to really stay together.
We need that undead realm, don't we? We need that going on. That alternate universe is awesome. Okay, well, I think that, we've covered Sue. I think we've done a good job today. I think we've enjoyed that. Have you enjoyed it? I've enjoyed it today.
I've enjoyed it.
I think there's been some really, really cool stuff that we've managed to cover. It's hard to cover everything. We've ultimately, we've glossed through some of the big nitty stuff because, we could be here all day talking about how amazing some of that stuff is. Already we're at 1 hour and 20 minutes on Sue. So we've not even covered a lot of the stuff that she did do, but we ultimately, we had to get through. We had to get to this point so that we could, talk about where we think she's going to go. So it's interesting to see. I think we've got a big 6 to 12 months for Sue, where she's ultimately going to end up. It's going to be very, very interesting, I think. Okay, so we need to wrap up. So I'd just like to say thank you to the TNI guys again for hosting us.
Guys.
We've been Impact. So thank you, Trent over at Total Nonstop Impact. Don't forget that you need to get over there. You need to subscribe. You need to smash the bell so that you never miss a lesson. That's important.
Smash the bell, guys.
Smash the bell. We are available on all podcast outlets. So make sure that, if wherever it is that you listen, you either listen or you watch, because you can either watch us on YouTube or you can listen on SoundCloud, iTunes, all the different podcast
Don't listen to something for you.
Yeah, no, it's better to watch us because we're very handsome. So that's cool. So thank you to the TNI guys. We really appreciate this. Obviously we've joined the Access era now, as we were talking about, where we've upped our game a little bit. Much better sound quality going on now, which is good. Next we'll be in HD. You never know. So it's, we might have to start introducing some effects and stuff going on. Maybe we never know. Maybe we need to go do this from the Undead Realm or something. I don't know.
We'll get Jimmy Jacobs on board.
Let's get Jimmy on board. Let's get helping us out. But thanks to Jay and Trent. Obviously Jay Bone is the producer of our show. Does a great job, so thank you very much, mate. So it's all good. I'd like to say thank you to our sponsors, ESO Personalized, where your brand is our business. If you're looking to do any embroidered clothes reprinting or anything like that, you're looking to promote your business. If you're a wrestler, if you're ultimately a promotion, whatever it is, and you're looking for a great company to brand, to promote your brand, then ESO personalized.co.uk is a place to go. So that's it. I'm done. Where can we find you, Joe? Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at JOK Empty Space. If you want to have a look at me at Facebook, search for Joe O'Keefe, or I can't remember what any other brand name you, but I've put under for myself. But look for Joe O'Keefe. If you see a description saying talking about the empty space, then you found me.
Okay.
Just enter the hashtag empty space or the void, and you'll find me somewhere.
You definitely will. We definitely will. And if you're looking to follow the Bison and join the ultimate Twitter wrestling fan, then you'll find me on Twitter at JBHawk. That's at JBHawk, HAWKE. I look forward to speaking to you guys on Twitter. You can also find me as Jason Hawk on Facebook. I'm always willing to talk wrestling. I am Bison. He is Joker. This has been Impacted. Thank you for joining us. Take care. We look forward to speaking to you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.